Before this video gets underway, I wanted to pay respects and say some words about Claude Lemieux, an NHL icon who, for a good chunk of his career, was the most feared man on the ice. A former Montreal Canadien, New Jersey Devil, Avalanche, Coyote, he was a Star, and a San Jose Shark, among many other things. Claude Lemieux passed away the other day, and the hockey world was shook down to its core. Because just days beforehand, we did see Claude Lemieux bear the torch at the Bell Center as the Montreal Canadiens kicked off their Eastern Conference Finals series. Lemieux was here just a few days ago, and as the top comment goes out there and says, I hope at that exact moment, Claude knew he was loved by many. Many and all Montreal Canadiens fans. Men's mental health is extremely important, and it's a cause that I think society has pushed away for a good chunk of its timeline. And so for Claude Lemieux, I just want to say RIP, condolences to his friends, his family, his loved ones, his teammates on and off the ice, and especially to his kids as well. Brendan Lemieux was a former Winnipeg Jet. He made a heartfelt post on Instagram about his father, and I think this is a really great time for the entire hockey world to come together and share some thoughts on one of the most feared men on the ice. Now, with that said, let's pivot a little bit to the Montreal Canadiens in 2026 and talk about what they can do next. Because later today, the Habs will play off against the Carolina Hurricanes in game number 5 of their 2026 Eastern Conference playoff matchup. And look, it's not looking good for Montreal. They're down 3-1 in the series. I don't think anybody really believes the Habs are going to be able to come back and win in 7. The Hurricanes have lost one game all playoff long. And you expect the Hurricanes to lose 3 in a row to this Montreal Canadiens team that is not shooting the puck, that is not matching the physical intensity, that is finding ways to embarrass themselves? I'd think not. So with that said, let's talk about a name that has already been reported to not going back to his team, and describe whether or not he could actually be an option for the Montreal Canadiens next year. Take a look at Corey Perry. And this tweet posted by the Mug NHL, Pierre LeBrun confirmed that Corey Perry will attempt to extend his career and return for the 26-27 season. LeBrun speculates that a return to the Tampa Bay Lightning is not in the cards. Corey Perry is a really good example of a guy that might actually give the Canadiens exactly what they need. I think it's been a pretty big question for fans, media, analysts alike to go out there and ask why exactly the Habs have disappointed so much in this series. Yes, you are seeing some guys get points, and yes, you're seeing the goaltending actually do some pretty good work, but the Montreal Canadiens are playing small hockey in a playoff stage where we have seen physicality and brutal results prevail. The Florida Panthers have been the landmark of this style of play over the years. And heck, you could even say in round 1, the Montreal Canadiens did a pretty good job at matching up the Tampa Bay Lightning in terms of the physicality, and it reflected on the score sheet. Every game was close, and Tampa Bay, despite the fact that they were an experienced powerhouse of a team years ago, they still brought it to Montreal, only to lose. The Habs, though, they're going up against a Carolina Hurricanes team that maybe isn't super brutal. It's not like they're dirty. It's more so just they play a hard game, and they play a checking style that the Montreal Canadiens have not been able to fight back against. So with that said, there are a number of names that you can talk about when it comes to the Montreal Canadiens and their ability to fight back. their ability to push back, and the kinds of players that we would have expected to excel in this kind of an environment. You can talk about the big guys on the top six. I think Juraj Slafkovský is the default name, but unfortunately, Juraj Slafkovský doesn't really play like a 6'3", 225 power winger. He has more finesse and skill to his game than a traditional bruiser, but you could also say the same thing about all the other guys. Nick Suzuki, he ain't big. Cole Caulfield's not that big, nor is Ivan Demidov. You have other names in the organization that do play big, but some of them are not actually playing. Brendan Gallagher, 5'9", he plays like he's 6'8". Josh Anderson is a great example of a guy who actually does that type of work. But now, it's 2026, he is no longer a top 6 option, but he is still super effective. And then you have the Xhekais. Arbor, Florian, these guys are in the organization, but they're not up and playing in the playoffs as of right now. Xhekaj, 13 games played throughout the Canadiens' playoff run, but he hasn't played a game versus Carolina, which is why we pivot back to Corey Perry, a free agent to be, and a guy that would fit the bill to a T if you decided to look at it that way. 41 years old, 6'3", 207, a right-handed guy. He plays on both wings. We all know and understand what Corey Perry is and what he has been in the NHL. Once upon a time, he was a 50-goal scorer. Once upon a time, he was a point per game. Nowadays, he doesn't really do that much scoring, but he still is a reasonably respected veteran who can put the biscuit in the basket. He had 9 points in 22 Lightning games this season, 28 points in 50 Kings games. Corey Perry was an underrated pickup and a guy that has still been trucking along despite being 41 years old. He didn't score any points against the Montreal Canadiens in round 1, but he did play a pretty meaningful role in setting the tone and establishing a physical presence in that series. Perry brings almost exactly what it is the Montreal Canadiens could use. Although I understand if you're a Canadiens fan, you could be looking at this guy and saying, hey, the Habs have Suzuki, Caulfield, Demidov, and Hudson at the top of their lineup. They don't need slow dudes like Corey Perry being brought into the fold. This is not the style of hockey Montreal needs to play. But I would argue that having some physicality, or maybe in Perry's case, a lot of physicality, and very little wheels is arguably better than some of the players the Canadiens have in their middle to bottom 6 right now that aren't really providing much physical sense despite being able to skate a little bit faster than Perry does. I'm also thinking about the cost. This guy is not going to be too expensive, right? He's got 1 year left on his deal. His last contract saw him making, I think it was $3 million a year. Something like that. Let's take a look at the Puckpedia and just dive into it over here. $2 million a year, excuse me. So it's even less than that. And now you have Canadiens fans going out there and talking about this on the subreddit. Miserable Phil 6972 went out there and said, ideally, if Florian Xhekaj can turn into a Corey Perry type, it would be a dream. But in the meantime, these young players need a veteran during the playoffs with lots of experience and the gritty, get in the opposing goalie's crease and stir some crap up after the whistle type of player. As Carolina showed, without completely deviating from the blueprint, the Habs do need players who can be dirty and cheat in the playoffs. The refs put the whistles away in the postseason, and the Habs need at least 2 players like Taylor Hall who can hold his own in terms of hockey standards of scoring and defending while still having that dirty cheating behavior, when you know the refs simply won't call those penalties. Now, I think this analysis is kind of misguided, but I do agree with the underlying sentiment that Corey Perry could be a very useful type of addition to the Montreal Canadiens in 2026-2027 to establish a physical role and to guide a lot of these younger Habs. We saw him have that presence with the Canadiens when they went to the finals in 2021. He had 10 points in 22 games played, and he was one of the most clutch players on the team. I have no doubt that Corey Perry still has something to offer for the Montreal Canadiens value-wise, and I would actually be really okay with bringing him back, considering the circumstances and thinking about where the Canadiens have faltered this season. With that said, you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section. How do you feel about the idea of Corey Perry returning to the Canadiens? How do you feel about this Game 5 to be? I'm not feeling good about this one. It doesn't seem like Montreal has a chance, but hey, we'll see what happens, right? Thoughts in the comment section below about Corey Perry going back to the Canadiens. I hope you enjoyed this Vidishashroll 9, and bye.